I had only been at the hospital for less than 12 hours, and since the birth was complicated, I had to undergo an operation, and the doctors wanted to keep me hospitalized for at least a week.
What the hell are you still doing here? You were supposed to start your shift at 9 o'clock. This is not how you're going to progress in this company.
What are you doing here? I quit, in case you didn't notice.
There's no such thing as quitting. I've told you all 1,000 times. So get up from that bed and come with me. We have projects to finish in the office.
I'm not going anywhere. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not in a condition to do so. And if you want to fire me for it, go ahead. I quit anyway. The doctors asked my boss to leave, but it was obvious he wanted to have the last word and wouldn't easily accept that I had told him to go. As he saw it, he was doing me a favor by letting me be in the hospital at that moment. Hello, my name is Karen, and for the past few months I've been working at an interior design company. The job is what I've always dreamed of doing, and my colleagues are fantastic as well. If I had to complain about something, it would probably be the boss. He turned out to be quite a character, in the worst sense of the word. When people worked the required hours, even putting in some extra time for the benefit of the business, my boss was all smiles and compliments, pointing out that each of us was crucial for the company to keep running, and he was very happy to have us under his command. Now, if anyone made the slightest mistake, like printing a document double-sided instead of single-sided, his merciless fury was unleashed. All those compliments he once gave seemed like they never existed. When he got angry, he tended to yell, throw objects that got in his way, and call us everything from ungrateful to useless, making it very clear that if the company was still standing, it was because he was at the helm.
One of these days, the boss is going to get us in trouble.
I heard about Mark. Is he okay? I heard the last vase. The boss smashed, almost hit his head.
Oh yes, he's fine. Luckily, the vase only grazed him. I said that because there's going to be a labor inspection next week, and considering how the boss is, it wouldn't surprise me if it ended up in an interrogation.
As much as I'd like to see him have a hard time, I don't think that will happen. The boss is very good at keeping up appearances. And I was right because I had noticed that the boss did the same when clients came to the building, and he had to be at the forefront to attend to them. He made sure to be punctual where he was supposed to be, always greeting visitors with a smile and a kind remark. The compliments towards his employees would return, and if any employee made a mistake during that time, he would downplay it, assuring them that anyone could make a mistake and that it wasn't necessary to worry. It seemed like the boss had two opposite personalities. When the clients, or the inspection in this case, left, he would go back to being the same demon as always, and his kind phase on those days when he was in a good enough mood to appreciate others' efforts was something very sporadic. It might happen once every 3 weeks. Remembering his employees' past mistakes, he wouldn't hesitate to punish them harshly, as if instead of misplacing a report, they had deliberately set fire to his office.
And remember, in this company, taking time off for nonsense is not allowed. You have a few vacation days per year, as the law dictates. If you want to go fool around outside of those dates, don't bother coming back. And what if we're sick, or have to be absent due to an emergency? We can't plan illnesses. In that case, make sure you're on the brink of death because I'm not going to grant you the courtesy of paid leave for just a cold.
Well, if we're going to die, we won't need that money anyway, but it would be nice to be able to take leave even unpaid, in case of an emergency.
I said no emergencies. The day you signed the contract, you assured that you would live for and dedicate yourself to the company, making the necessary sacrifices. So no backing out, or I'll make sure you don't get hired anywhere else.
My boss was serious when he said he wouldn't accept the slightest lack of discipline when it came to showing up for work. And the other employees noticed it too. Every time someone needed to take days off for illness or to attend to a seriously ill family member, that person never returned to the office again. They were fired without further ado, as if it were normal not to accept that a worker might need more days off than those agreed upon in a contract. Injustices were commonplace, and it seemed my boss lacked the empathy needed to understand that people didn't take time off from their jobs for fun.
If they want to take leave for stress, they shouldn't come back. What's the point of being employed here in the first place if they can't handle anything? It's not just stress. It's also depression. It's necessary to take care of mental health. And how is that my problem? If they're sad, They should be sad at home and stop crying in my office. I'll prepare their severance package and they'll be done with a job they'll never get back.
I had been thinking about quitting for a while, and when I got pregnant, I thought that when I took maternity leave, it would be the perfect time to announce my resignation. Like many other colleagues who had gone through a similar situation or had seen my boss's ways when someone did something he simply didn't approve of, I didn't want to spend any more time in that company. I was just going to stick around long enough to earn some extra money until my baby was born. Right before the baby was born, when the appointed date to go to the hospital came, I would leave without looking back. I had even talked to human resources to let them know in advance that instead of taking leave, I would just quit then. Of course, I didn't mention any of this to my boss. I knew that if I even hinted that I was thinking of quitting, he would go ballistic and probably end up firing me on the spot. So the only thing he knew, up to the very end, when I had to take my leave to the hospital, was that I might have to take at least one day on leave. And of course, that was a lie. The truth was, I resigned before I gave birth. As usual, my clueless boss kept arguing until the end.
Don't even think that just because you're having a baby, you'll be able to take leave. We don't do things that way in my company.
But by law, I'm entitled to it.
I know what the law says, thank you very much, but I don't care. You have a commitment to the company, and it's enough that I let you go to the hospital the day the baby is born.
And no, I should thank you for allowing me to give birth in a more comfortable place than the office, with appropriate medical care. That comment made him furious once again. He didn't seem to realize that he could be reported if the authorities found out how he belittled his workers' problems and didn't grant them the necessary pay or vacations depending on the situation. For my part, I thought that when the time came for me to go to the hospital, there wouldn't be a problem. Because yes, my boss had threatened to fire me, but I was going to leave anyway. And it wasn't like he could show up at the hospital where I was giving birth to demand that I return to the office, right? Not only would that be terribly inappropriate, but it would make no sense. Besides, I had given sufficient notice for them to find a replacement. My conscience was clear. By the time I got to the hospital, my boss should have already taken notice of my resignation, since I left instructions for him to be informed by then. Therefore, I didn't think that just a few hours after giving birth, my boss would actually show up at my hospital to do exactly what I could only have imagined in my nightmares. I had only been at the hospital for less than 12 hours, and since the birth was complicated, I had to undergo an operation, and the doctors wanted to keep me hospitalized for at least a week.
What the hell are you still doing here? You were supposed to start your shift at 9 o'clock. This is not how you're going to progress in this company.
What are you doing here? I quit, in case you didn't notice.
There's no such thing as quitting. I've told you all 1,000 times. So get up from that bed and come with me. We have projects to finish in the office.
I'm not going anywhere. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not in a condition to do so. And if you want to fire me for it, go ahead. I quit anyway. The doctors asked my boss to leave, but it was obvious he wanted to have the last word and wouldn't easily accept that I had told him to go. As he saw it, he was doing me a favor by letting me be in the hospital at that moment. Therefore, the medical care I could receive also had to end precisely when he decided. My husband and baby didn't matter to him, and he let me know by yelling at me so that half the health center could hear the disturbances that were about to occur in that room. Maybe I could be fired, but my boss wouldn't tolerate the humiliation of being sent out by a mere employee. It didn't matter. I didn't work for him anymore. He still saw me that way. So he made himself heard in a very inappropriate way. So much so that several nurses had to come to throw him out. My boss started a physical fight with them during visiting hours, creating chaos. And while someone was busy calling the police, a team of doctors from a mental institution across the street had to come to the rescue, as they seemed to have detected erratic and violent behavior in my boss that deserved to be studied in some psychiatric ward. When the authorities arrived, they were undecided about what would be more appropriate, to put my boss in jail or in a psychiatric institution. In the end, as it couldn't be otherwise, my boss ended up in preventive detention. A few days later, a coworker called me.
Karen, we need your help.
If it's for work, I'm not coming back. I've already decided.
Oh no, it's not for work. Or it is, but we're not asking you to come back. You see, we've heard what the boss did. and several coworkers have decided to file a collective complaint so he pays for all the injustices he made us suffer. I was calling to see if you'd like to join and testify against him.
Of course, I wasn't going to say no to that. With the complaint filed and backed by more than 24 people, both current and former employees of the company, what could have been a fine and several months of community service for my boss ended up being a sentence of more than 10 years in prison for labor abuse and not granting his employees the rights they were legally entitled to. While in prison, my boss still didn't change. Unfortunately for him, he started bossing one of the inmates around, not knowing that the inmate was part of a dangerous gang. One day, the inmate had enough and my boss was beaten severely, resulting in one of his fingers being broken. The gang member sentence was extended because of that act. My ex-boss, Case, made the news, and my ex-boss's reputation was so tarnished that no one would want to hire him ever again, even when he will be out of jail. Even if he had done some good for the company, people only remembered the bad. And even those things that previously didn't seem so important or could have been seen as slip-ups now took on a more bitter tone. While my ex-boss served his well-deserved sentence and went viral on social media as one of the worst employers imaginable, I was finally able to live peacefully with my family, happy that justice had been served and also having received a good compensation that the court ordered my boss to pay all the victims of his outbursts. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.